Hey everyone, NicMakesPlays here. Today I'm going to my champion tier list extravaganza. Whoa. But basically, every time there's a new champion or a new balance patch that significantly alters the meta, I like to make a champion tier list to say what I think are the best champions, the worst champions, and somewhere in the middle. We just had Aphelios come out and a lot of balance changes with that, so I'm going to say what I currently think are the best champions and whatnot and why. But also, Shurima's coming out soon, which should have a lot of new champions. I believe it's like 7 or 8 new champions right off the bat. So when those come out and things kind of settle and we get a feel for what's good and what's not, I'll make my updated champion tier list. But for now, with the Aphelios patch, here's what I currently think is the chain of command in the champions in Legend Runeterra. So S plus, we have 2. We have Twisted Fate and Aphelios. These can go either way. Aphelios can be the best. Twisted Fate can be the best. They're both pretty good in their own ways. It's kind of hard to tell, but I guess we'll dive right into it. So first, we got Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate's extremely strong because his level up is basically like instant win, I guess you could say. I won't be going too in depth all the champions because I could talk about these champions forever. There's a lot of cool things, level 1 and level 2 for them, so I'll briefly say what makes them have the ranking. His is mostly level 1 form. You can replace yourself or deal 1 to all enemies or stun the strongest enemy and deal 2 to it. Level 1 form just use a 2/2 for 4 and you choose one of those things. Usually you pick the one that just draws you a card and work towards his level up. So basically it's like you have to kill him or he instantly wins the game. So why he's so strong is, I'm alluding to, is the level up. The level up, he does all 3 of these things every single turn. He does the draw card, deal 1 to all enemies, and stun the strongest enemy and deal 2 damage to it every single turn. So like my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. He does all 3 of these things every single turn. It's pretty much like basically hard to ever outgrind that or outbeat that, which is you're using like normal cards from your hand to do your effects, and he's just getting free thing, free thing, free thing, free thing, free thing every turn, and it kind of just way too much to keep up with. So that's what makes him the strongest, is his instant win capabilities. The reason he's fair though is because he does have low health and you can remove him with a Mystic Shot or Get Excited and stuff like that. But the issue is if you don't draw those or you don't run those, then they just level Twisted Fate and win. But second or first, depending on look at it, Aphelios could actually be the best champ in the game, is Aphelios. Aphelios is absolutely insane. On release, I looked at Aphelios and I said this card's gonna be bonkers. I mean, pretty sure everyone thought that for the most part. The reason why is because he's a 3/3 that gives you an infinite value engine. So he's a 3/3, and you summon him, lets you summon a 2-cost follower from your deck, that then lets you deal 3 to an enemy follower, that then lets you stun an enemy for 2 turns, that then lets you summon another 2-cost follower, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Once you've done 4 of those things, they cost 1 instead of 2 each turn to do. It's just an infinite value engine. Even if you kill him with like Get Excited right away, he still gets the free card, which is pretty insane by itself. But if you don't kill him, he just wins the game kind of Twisted Fate. Just an infinite value engine, using real cards from your hand to try and like deal with things in the field, and he's just generating you free card after free card after free card. The free cards are really good. He also can heal, so if you're ever down at any point in the game, you can just heal your life back with the lifesteal. He can get something overwhelmed, go for games, so he threatens a win condition that way. He's pretty insane. The more you play him, the more you realize how good he is. Like some small things are that so the way he gets the weapons for free is every time you play 2 cards a turn, you get another one of these effects, but you only get it once per round, right? But when he levels up, like the turn he levels up, you actually can do it again. You play 2 cards, you get your thing, you use it, he levels up, it restarts his counter on his level up. So you can do 2 more things and get another thing. So that turn he levels up, you can actually get 2 free moon weapons to your hand. I mean, you pay mana for them, but the card generation is free. But yeah, he's a win con. He heals if you're down. He can stun things mid-game for 2 turns, which basically can just nullify huge threats, especially condensed threats. Like, let's say your opponent plays, what's a good example? Anyone with big stats. Let's say your opponent plays, here's some big stats. Ladros. I don't know, Ladros. Commander Ladros. If you stun it for 2 turns, it locks him out of that blocker and attacker for 2 turns, which is a lot for a big mana commitment like 9. That was a pretty extreme example, you get what I mean. He summons a 3/4 Challenger from deck with Boxtopus in Bilgewater, which is one of the best combos in the whole game right now. Basically, the best way to play him is he's a 3/3 that gives you a card, and then you summon a 3/4 Boxtopus from your deck, that then gives you a card that deals 3 to enemy follower, that then gives you a card stuns for 2 turns, and then you can either choose to heal from there or just restart it and summon another follower, another thing. It's just an infinite value engine that leads to win con. Also makes you can't lose the heals. He's pretty insane. I assume he's going to be toned down. I mean, he just released, And I think he's really cool and hype, and I love him. And I've already made tons of decks with him. My YouTube, if you haven't seen it. He's got Aphelios Viktor, Aphelios Sign of Nightfall, Aphelios Twisted Fate. But yeah, let's move on. These are just both infinite value engines and become like basically like you win if you don't deal with them. Next we have Elise and. This was the best champion for probably multiple patches recently, but they just nerfed Hush and Pale Cascade, which are 2 cards that run 3 in his deck, and they kind of hurt the deck a little bit. Yes, Hush is good against him, so the nerf to Hush helps him, but it hurts him more than it helps him because this deck really needs that to survive. So he's still S+ champion. He's still just 20 damage in 1 turn, but he's not as, I guess, self-sufficient as these. Like, he needs protection and setup and stuff like that. Aphelios and Twisted Fate aren't the centerfold of their deck, whereas like Lee Sin, the whole deck is Baylor and Lee Sin. You can win with other things like Sparkle Fly or Zoe, but basically you want to be doing this 20-0 combo with Lee Sin. The Aphelios and Twisted Fate, it's like, all right, I'm going to play these threats. If you kill them, then I still get my card advantage for the free effects they gave me, or the free card they gave me. If you don't kill them, I win. With Lee Sin, it's like, okay, I need this to go through for me to win. If I do go through, I will win. But if you kill it or like get rid of it, it's actually really inconvenient, and I kind of have to hope for an alternate win condition with Lee Sin. So he's a bit more of a build around. You build your whole deck around him, where these cards are just splashed. So he is not directly compared to these cards, but I'm just trying to show the flaws. I mean, he's one of the best champs in the whole game of him compared to like why he's not S+ tier. Next is Zoe. Zoe, extremely self-sufficient. Just a 1-drop. When she attacks, she gives you free cards. You can keep getting free cards off her. If you don't remove her, then she's a win condition with her level up. But being a 1/1, pretty easy to deal with compared to some of the stronger ones. So very, very good. Next is Draven. Draven is actually one of the things that's keeping aggro in this game right now because it's so strong and overwhelming. I like playing Draven in my Overwhelm deck. You have Draven Darius Overwhelm. You have Draven Jinx. Even in control decks like or mid-range decks, you have the Draven Ezreal. You can just use the axes that he gives you because on summon he gets you a free axe. On attack it's a free axe. And then you can discard those with Rummage or Get Excited and stuff like that. He's a 3/3 for 3 with quick attack. So basically on summon, he instantly gives you free card advantage. In that turn, he gets a free 3 damage usually because whatever you block, it's going to die. It's quick attack. So he's just free momentum in your favor, free tempo, free damage, free card advantage. He just is a very, very self-sufficient. You don't level him up that much. A lot of people might be saying, oh, you don't level up Draven that much. Like, I don't really see why he's a win con. And the thing about that is actually a misconception in my opinion. He's actually extremely easy to level up. All you have to do is summon and attack once, then you have 2 axes, and you just use both axes leveled up. The thing is, these axes are so good, just call off Rummage and Get Excited and such, that you usually don't have to level them up, but you can. So I think that he's extremely strong. He's basically like people call him a follower sometimes. You don't level him up that much, but he does everything. Like, everything about him's good. There's like nothing bad about him. Just free attacks, free card advantage. Next we have Fiora. I think Fiora is extremely strong in Runeterra. The reason why isn't because the 3/3 challenger. That being a 3/3 challenger is good. If she only had that part though and didn't have her, kill 4 things, win the game, she'd be like around like C tier. It's a good card. But the big threat is that she threatens a win con. Even if you don't always get it, it exists and they have to deal with it. The reason this is so big is a lot of times you can play with Fiora Shen, you draw your hand, and you instantly say, oh, I lost. Like, you can just tell you lost, like, you can't beat the strategy. A lot of decks of Fiora, like Fiora Shen, protected with barriers, combat tricks, deny spells, all kinds of stuff, and it's just like, you can just tell you can't beat that strategy. If your deck can't beat that, you don't draw the cards in your deck that do beat it. And if you play nothing, then you're losing tempo, and the less you play, the more mana they're storing. So they have more mana to protect it with, like extra mana for the sharp sights, the denies, whatever, the barriers. But then also, they're drawing into more protection spells. So it's like every turn you play passive, they also get to gain more chances to protect Fiora. And then it just gets to a point where you're just like, okay, well, I can't be a Fiora because they're going to have more protection than I have removal, let alone even having removal. But I think a lot of games just come down to Fiora just... A lot of decks in Runeterra, like not just like 1 or 2, like a lot of decks in Fiora, wow. A lot of decks in Runeterra, Fiora just gets 4 kills and just beats them, and there's not much you can do. You have like 1 or 2 chances to interact with her before she beats you, and they usually have answers for that. So again, it's as simple as you draw your hand. A lot of times you can just tell, okay, I'm going to lose to Fiora, and there's nothing I can do about it. So she does this win con that decks just can't beat, and she destroys a lot of styles right now. Next we have Anivia. This is like the highest Anivia's been forever. So Anivia's in an amazing spot because it's really good against Twist Fate Fizz. High level Twist Fate Fizz players will say they still win, and they do. But against a lot of stuff in the meta, they can't beat this like super polarizing, like not like a turtle strategy, but it's very one dimensional strategy. It's like it gets Anivia, it spams a bunch of Anivias, and it wins. And they also have a new card called Gluttony, which lets you get Rekindlers from your deck, which summons more Anivias, which makes the deck be more progressive, which helps the Anivia deck a lot. But I think the biggest thing about Anivia isn't really about Anivia herself. I know this is supposed to be about like the champions, but I have to include the rest of the cards in the game to show like why they're there. So the strategy of the Anivia deck is literally like 30 plus healing cards and like stall cards and removal cards, and then 3 Anivias to win con. You level up, you Rekindler, you Harrowing, whatever. You multiply Anivias and you kill them. The reason why this is so good is that decks can't deal with these decks that have 30 plus healing, removal, stall cards. It's just nothing to do. And Anivia is a very simple win con, a very simple, straightforward stall win con. You get to turn 10, then she levels up, and you start doing 2 damage every turn of their attack. You can play multiple of her. So I guess it's the role she plays that makes her so good. The fact that decks can't deal with this kind of style. But I guess if I had to say anything about Anivia herself, it's that it's good that when she dies, she gets the egg, and then it reborns in turn 10, and also Rekindler and Gluttony can multiply her. So she's able to multiply and build a deck with her as a win con that doesn't have to commit too much in her. It's kind of the opposite of like Lee Sin, where Lee Sin is a lot about making that Lee Sin that win con and making sure you're ready to negate their stuff on that turn and win. And then with Anivia, it's like low committal. It's like you just have Anivia plus 30 plus healing and stalling, and you just have to kind of like stay alive until Anivia's level 10, and you control the game from there. It's very strong. Next we have Ezreal, and can't do the team now. We have Ezreal. Ezreal is really strong. His level 4 is really easy to do. It's target 6 enemies with the spells, and then he can do 2 damage per spell that targets an enemy and 1 damage per spell that you use in general. He's just really cheap in terms of cost. Like, he's cheap to level up, only needs 6 targets. Cheap to play, 3 is not that much. And he packs like 10 plus damage when he summons, so you just get his level up for him with Stag Shock, Harsh Winds, Mystic Shot, Get Excited, whatever. And then like even Icefall Archer is good. And then you put him on the field, and you stick him there, and he can just over time get 10 damage. In the Teemo Ezreal deck, even on the stack, you can just sit him on the board, and he just makes all your spells do so much. So he becomes a win con that's super easy to produce. Also, level 1 form is pretty underrated. I think it's really strong. Just playing a 1/3 elusive attack, and then you get a free Mystic Shot, so you get to kill a 2-cost follower, or 2 health follower. That can be annoying over time if they get a few Ezreal chips in his level 1 form and just kill a few things. Very good. When he's leveled up, if you get a chip in for 2, that's 2 damage with the elusive. And then you can target their Nexus, and that's 3 damage because of its effect, plus the Mystic Shot, so it's just 5 damage by himself. So very strong, very easy to level up, pretty simple. Next we have Teemo. I'm pretty sure this is the highest Teemo's ever been. He's been in a few tier 1 decks and tier 2 decks, but this Teemo Ezreal deck is really strong. Force to reckon with in this meta. Twisted Fate is one of the best champions because all the drawing he can do, and he just kind of like digs your whole deck. A lot of decks are based around Twisted Fate and how good the drawing is in unison with him. And Teemo puts Puff Caps in your deck, so whenever they draw them, they take a damage. He's simple, he's just a 1/1 for 1, so he's low committal. Just a card that puts in damage, he's just a 1/1 elusive, that's 1 damage if he gets in. 5 Puff Caps, potentially 5 more damage. And then he keeps going and going, and then if you have him in the Puff Cap deck, you can, if they have 30 Puff Caps deck, you multiply it to 60, and that's just a win con by itself. It's super low committal, super simple, and just in general, elusives are even good for blocking right now against Twisted Fate Fizz, so I think Teemo is very strong. Next we have Elise. Not really played in that many decks this meta, besides the Go Hard, but Elise is one of the best 2-drops in the whole game, if not the best. So a lot of people don't understand Elise sometimes, or I mean, different ways to look at it, but a lot of times people say, oh, Elise, I don't see why she's so good. She's not even a win con. You like never level her up. It's kind of like Draven, where they're not like there for being... Draven and Elise aren't win cons. They're just there because they're self-sufficient and good. It's like, she had 2-mana 2/3 with Fearsome, so you can't block it with another 2/3, I guess, to not take the damage from her. When she attacks, she gives you a 1/1. 1/1s are really good against certain decks. Things that have 1 health to block Icefall Archers, against Draven Jinx, you can block Giant Urchin, Jury Rig, all kinds of stuff like that. So the 2/3 plus the 1/1 blocker can really carry it away, especially if they don't have a blocker at all. Like, say it's turn 2, you play it, and then you attack and they pass, you get to keep the 1/1. That's super strong. She always ships in the 2 damage a lot of time because of the Fearsome. Even if they're a 3/2 and they block her, you still get the free 1/1 to block for next turn. So she's just very self-sufficient 2-drop. Basically, she holds down the early game. She holds down their game so well all by herself. And It's a lot of free value. Next we have Trundle. Used to be one of the best champs in the game, if not the best. Been nerfed. Still very strong. He's a mainstay of the Feel the Rush deck, which is what puts him here, because you can go Warring Stones on 3 and then him on 5, which is pretty good to hold on the board because of his regeneration. The Ice Pillar is good, but one of the biggest things is he has Overwhelm, and with Feel the Rush and the Overwhelm, it's level up for him. He does 10 plus damage, along with Tryndamere. And the reason this is so good is that on 5 he holds on the board, and on 10 he's a win con. Or when he has 10 attack, he's also a win con from Feel the Rush. So multi-purpose. It's kind of interesting seeing him here. He's not like crazy strong, but there's actually a pretty clear gap between like the B tier and all the rest right now in Runeterra. I think that these champions being so good makes it so like, since Trundle, the Feel the Rush deck is good against Twisted Fate, which makes it so Trundle is like, I guess, better in the meta. But a lot of these champions are decent, but they're not that good against this deck because Twisted Fate deck and Aphelios deck are just stronger to the point where it's like, okay, at least Trundle can beat these strategies, which puts him in a spot in A tier. Next, you have Jinx. Jinx is really good. Jinx is pretty much like why the Draven Jinx deck is so strong. Without her, you lose the ability to refuel, lose the ability to push huge damage. I think Jinx is so sick. She's only in one deck, really. It's Draven Jinx. But in Draven Jinx, it's just an aggro deck. You go wide, you play a bunch of units, you're pretty explosive. One of my favorite decks. But then, when they clear your field, you have Jinx. She draws you 2 cards a turn, level up for him, gives 4 damage to a Nexus every turn, so she gives you the extra breach you need and the refuel you need. Kind of an all-one champion, and her champ spells, Get Excited, can also push 3 damage to the enemy Nexus. So I think Jinx is extremely powerful. It's just that there's not many decks that can utilize her, but the ones that can are very strong. Next, you have Shen. Shen's just a support. I mean, he's a support card. He's a supporting champion for Fiora. Give her the barrier. Then the barrier is allowed to get Fiora the 4-4 kills, and you can win. He has decent stats. A 2-6 for 4 is pretty good. His level's not that important, but it can happen and just give you extra damage to push because the Fiora Shen deck doesn't have like crazy damage output until you get stuff going with Shen and Brightstone Protector, or Brightstone Formation and Greek Light Caretaker. So Shen's a good supporting champion. So next we have Viktor. I know some people don't think Viktor's very good because he used to be an F tier in my last video, but they buffed him. He's actually significantly better. I'm sure some people are still going to be like, I don't get why Viktor's so good, but let me explain why. He's really self-sufficient, and he's just really good with Aphelios, honestly. Viktor Aphelios is just a straight-up a good deck. So was Zoe Viktor. So it's like, yeah, Twisted Fate Aphelios is better, but with Aphelios, Viktor gets all kinds of created cards. He's a win condition on his own. That's a huge thing, because a lot of times with Aphelios decks, it's like Aphelios is good. If they remove him, you lose like a lot of your game plan. You kind of need alternate win conditions if you don't draw Aphelios, and Viktor is that. He's easy to level up now. He gets his Hex Core upgrade, I think it's called, the turn he summons, so you can start like wrapping on or putting on the keywords. You can really start getting stuff going there, and he becomes a win con all by himself. He's really not that bad. I mean, he's a 2-4 and then a 3-4 right with the augment on the first Hex Core Foundry, the turn he summoned right away. You can get him on Overwhelm, Elusive to go for game. You can get him on Spell Shield and quick attack and stuff. He's just hard to deal with, like tough regen. I really think Viktor's good. I think that Viktor Aphelios would be a huge threat in the meta if Twisted Fate Aphelios wasn't just a better version. So I guess in short, yeah, Viktor Aphelios is still better than most decks in the game. It's just overshadowed by like, why would you play Viktor over Aphelios? But if they do nerf like something about this deck, like something the box boost from the deck, then you could see more Viktor Aphelios. All right, next we have Tahm Soraka. Tahm Kench and Soraka go together. They're pretty much only play together. The Tahm Soraka deck is very 2 peas in a pod for them, so I guess I'll just say them at the same time. They're so good because they're rolling the meta right now. So this is a weird kind of, this is the most anti-meta deck, I guess I'd say. Tahm Soraka is good at countering the meta. It can suck up Aphelios with Tahm, suck up Twisted Fate. It can eat Anivia. It can eat Elise in. It's really, really annoying to deal with for a lot of the top decks. Like against the entire field, it's not good against everything. But particularly, its positioning right now is it beats a lot of top decks, and they lose hard to it. One of Aphelios' hardest counters is Tahm Kench. And Aphelios normally destroys other things, but I was playing a lot of Aphelios on my way to Masters of my EU Smurf, and I was just beating like everything. I'm like, man, Aphelios is so strong. And I ran the Tahm Kench Soraka, and the dude just washed me, and I was like, I don't know how I beat that. And I guess it's like, its strategy's kind of like Anivia, where it's like super polarizing, and decks can't deal with that. And then Soraka's just a support champion. She heals Tahm. She draws you cards. She's just good statted. 1-6 for 3 is insane, so very good. Next is Sejuani. Sejuani's an individually good champion. Mostly played in Overwhelm right now because Ashe isn't that popular. Kind of been power creeped a bit by some of the stuff at the higher tiers. But Sejuani's good. Well-rounded removal. She's just good because her level 1 form is removal that also chips overwhelm damage. And if you do level her up, then it's like a win con itself. So she's just well-rounded, which is good. Next, we have Aurelion Sol. I think Aurelion Sol is amazing. I've always thought very highly of him. He's not played as much right now because a lot of these decks are too fast for him, like Twisted Fate Aphelios and even like Draven Jinx and stuff like that. Pretty much everything right now is a bit too fast for him. But when he's good, he's insane. He's one of the best win cons in the game. 10-10 for 10. That gives you the Celestials every turn. He's just a late game generator that keeps giving you stronger and stronger cards. And he levels up, you like instantly win. So he's one of the strongest late games in the game, and he will always be in and out of the meta based on how good that is at the time. It's pretty decent right now. Not crazy, but I think Aurelion Sol is amazing and always has potential to become like even up here. Next is Fizz. Probably the best Fizz has been in a long time. Fizz is used with Twisted Fate just as an elusive that can protect itself. It's give a suit up. You just play on turn 1. You can use Portal Cannon, protect it, cost 0. Chip damage directly. And yeah, again, it's how you beat the Anivia matchup. Without this card, it'd be really hard to beat Anivia. You have to suit up on Fizz, and then that can't use Vengeance or whatever because you can negate it. So Fizz is a pretty integral part of Twisted Fate Fizz, which is one of the best decks in the whole game right now. Next, we have Swain. So Swain has been a bit worse lately because when Zoe came out, it gave everyone access to Equinox and stuff that can silence the Leviathan. Even just the big units like Leviathan aren't that good right now because they're so expensive. But Swain is still really strong, still win con, still force to reckon with. And now people are starting to play things that aren't Zoe as much. Then Leviathan's been coming back. So very good. A lot of champs here, so I'll try to go a bit faster. Next, Misfortune. She was just nerfed, doesn't have Overwhelm anymore. Scouts took a huge hit. The Grand Plaza was what made them like so strong again. They nerfed also the Misfortune herself. She's still insane. You still overall, you still win, so she gets a spot in the B tier. But there's not really that many good Misfortune decks right now. The best one is Pirate Aggro, better than Scouts at the moment. And you don't even really use Misfortune that much in that deck. Like you want to attack with her in Pirate Aggro. A lot of misconceptions you have is people hold her back in that deck. You want to attack with her. She's just a 3/3 that deals 1 damage to all blockers into the next few attacks, or when anything attacks, which is still insanely strong, which lands her in B tier, because that is really good. She's just generically good, 3/3 self-sufficient, so that lands her in B tier. Next, we have Tryndamere. Tryndamere's really good in Feel the Rush. He's just a huge bomb. He triggers making Trundle stronger for the Behold. He's one of the strongest ways to do with... Because again, the Feel the Rush you play in becomes a 10/10 Overwhelm. If he dies, he levels up instead, so he's hard to deal with. And he's basically just like how you win with Feel the Rush, which is one of the stronger decks right now. So there's that. Gangplank moving up a bit. Pirate Aggro seeing a comeback. And the reason why is it's countered to Aphelios and Twisted Fate Fizz. It's actually not that great of a deck overall. But its ability to deal with the Twisted Fate and put on the pressure that they can't deal with right away makes it have a huge role right now and shoots up Gangplank. Next is Leona. Leona's pretty well-rounded. Just good with the Yasuo decks. Good with just a generically good champ. She'll never be that bad. She's like a 4/6 that stuns something and has good stats. All the Slayers have good stats. She's good. Karma's potential to be like here. Literally. Karma always has potential to be like right here. She's so insane. She's as good as the card pool she has to work with. In the past, she's been like the best champ or top 3 champs for a while, but they've nerfed a lot of her surrounding decks and her surrounding cards. And there's not really a win con with her. Like Go Hard was just nerfed, and that was a Spooky Karma could use Go Hard. So she's as good as the card you duplicate, and there's nothing really good to duplicate right now. And going to turn 10 is more reliable in other decks right now, like Anivia. Next we have Darius. Pretty straightforward. 10/6 with Overwhelm. Insanely strong. He's, in my opinion, the best way to play Overwhelm was with Darius Draven, and he's just 10 damage on turn 6. Vi, I could never see Vi being below C tier, no matter what. I think Vi is just generically good. You can splash it with Vi Aphelios, you can do Vi Riven, you can do Vi Zoe, Vi Viktor. She's just a good mid-range like challenger with good stats that can hold down the field and also put some damage level up for him. Next we have Callista. Not played as much since Fearsome took a big hit. They're just not that good right now with all the healing in Runeterra. And Endure loses the Hush and like Equinox and stuff, but still a decent deck overall, Endure. And Fearsome's are still decent too, I guess. So in those decks, she does do some pretty cool stuff. She can also be good with Lucian, so she's good statted, good Fearsome attack, good level up, overall very good. Next we have Ashe. Generically good. Crystal Arrow. Ashe is still better than most of these decks, so She's good. I don't know what else to say. There's like a lot. It's hard to go over every single champion in depth, but she's good, just not as good as the better decks. Diana. I think a lot of people think Diana's lower right now. Like the F. She's not F tier. Some think she's D tier. I think she's fine. She's still. I think people underrate her. Yeah, they just nerfed Pale Cascade, which makes her a lot worse, but she's okay. Like she's not that bad. She's still a challenger with quick attack on 2, so she's basically a free removal for a card, kill like Mountain Goat or whatever. And when you level her up, she can do some, which is only really easy to do in Nightfall. But in Nightfall, you can still level her up, and you can kill things that have big health with her effects, push for huge damage with Cygnus, you can give her Overwhelm with Aphelios or Lifesteal to heal back. She's good. Next is Riven. I think Riven's a bit better than these decks. Like, Riven Vi or Riven and Overwhelm, this still gives her a few different roles. Like, yeah, there's not really a Riven-centric deck right now, but she still is a 3-4 that gives you Blade Fragment each turn. I think people underrate Riven. I'm not saying she's great, but people are always like, oh, she's a 3-4 that does nothing. It's like, okay, well, 3-4 is the best stats like in the game for like a 3-drop, so, or one of them. So 3-4 is pretty good. She built up Omen Hawk and Overwhelm. She's a 4-5 for 3. They use the Blade Fragments, and they did buff the Blade of Exile too, and her units like Blade Squire. So I think she's pretty decent actually. This is a Tribune Populator via Riven decks and stuff like that. Next, I have Nocturne. So here's why I have Nocturne here. A lot of people would put Nocturne lower too. I think that Nocturne Aphelios is better than every single deck here of all these cards. Is it optimal? No. Is there any reason you'd ever use Nocturne Aphelios over Aphelios Diana Nightfall? Perhaps you could put like 1 or 2 in and maybe just try it out. It's not like Nightfall's good. It's just like something a 3-4 challenger from your deck is so insane that there's no reason you would really dive into Nightfall over just playing Twisted Fate Aphelios. But I still think Aphelios Nocturne is. It's kind of like how Aphelios Viktor's the worst version of Aphelios. Twisted Fate, that's the same way I feel about Aphelios Diana and Aphelios Nocturne. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Aphelios is so good. If you pair him with like Diana, Viktor, or Nocturne, he's better than most decks. It's just usually you play him with Twisted Fate. So he's still good. You can still play this deck if you want to. So Nocturne's good. I like Nocturne and Aphelios together because he puts another win con in the game. One of the flaws of like all-in Aphelios decks or more Aphelios-centric decks is they need more win cons. And I think that Nocturne can provide that for a Nightfall deck, so that's pretty cool. And he's okay in Fearsomes. Next is Lucian and Hecarim. That's like a tier 2.5 deck. It's okay. It can be hard to deal with if they open insanely good, but usually it's not that consistent, and it's an okay deck. It's like low tier 2 or tier 3, but it's still good. It's still a good deck, and it's better than all the rest of the decks, so yeah, it's here. Thresh, that's actually good right now. Pretty good removal, good stats to deal with the Aphelios and such, and Twisted Fate. People are running Thresh. I think it's Thresh Aurelion Soul Targon's Peak sometimes. That looks decent. So there's that. Heimerdinger, still a value engine that has to be answered. So I think he's good. Yasuo, I'm going a lot faster now. It's hard to say about these decks because they're not played that much. Yasuo actually got a huge buff with Aphelios. Probably the best it's been in a long time, which is D tier, but still better than he usually is. That's a good deck. Yasuo's actually not that bad. The stunning from Graviton gives him some cool synergies. Next is Shyvana. So I actually don't think Shyvana is that bad. I would never put her in F tier. Some people would. I actually don't agree that Shyvana sucks. I don't think she's that bad. It's the Dragon deck that has problems because there's not much synergies in Dragon, especially Herald the Dragon being one of the only synergies in all of Dragons. It's a 1/1 and not even really plagued. It's so easy to kill. But Shyvana herself, I mean, she's a 4/4, and you attack with her, she becomes a 5/5. A 5/5 on 4 is pretty good. That helps her on level up condition. Her champ spell is extremely weak. It's one of the worst in the game because like 3 mana to give something challenger, which isn't like really worth the mana. But maybe they'll buff that card. They'll buff dragons. I think individually Shyvana's fine. And honestly, I don't think dragons are awful. They're kind of just a weaker version of other Demacia Targon decks, but they're cool with Grand Plaza, and Judgment's a good card, and Shyvana's okay. Quinn dropped a lot with the Grand Plaza nerf was what made her have a huge role. She actually was the highest win rate champ for a bit. With Grand Plaza and a few other seasons because of Scout's roles in the meta. But with the Misfortune nerf, Grand Plaza nerf, it's the weakest Scout's been in a long time. So, and she's also very hard carried by Misfortunes. So if Scouts aren't good, she's not really that good. That's all she really is played in. So she's here. Tarek's decent. He's actually not that bad. His level up's cool and he has a unique effect, and I like him with Ribbon. The only downside, like the reason he's usually low tier, like D tier, is because he has to attack and he's relying on 2 other cards. You need to have an out to support and a spell. And you have to have one every turn to really get the best of his abilities. If you do and they can't answer it, he's amazing. But if they can, he's not that great. So there's some problems because he's a lot of ways to be interrupted, but overall strong champ. Lux is here. Not really a good Lux deck right now. Lux can easily go up to like A or plus, depending on like how good she is in the meta. Grand Plaza made her a bit better, but now that's not really seen the meta. She's a bit weaker. So we're playing Lux Ramparza. She always has potential. It's kind of weird seeing her in D tier because she's been like really high in the past. But there's not really a Lux deck right now that can compete with the Aphelios Twisted Fate type stuff. Garen, no red deck right now. Grand Plaza, you know, Demacia cards gave him a chance for a bit, but kind of falling out. Hopefully we see our boy again. Next we have Braum. Braum isn't actually that bad in Scarground. Scargrounds can win. Like, Scargrounds is scary. He's even good in, like, even in Freya SI, he's not even the worst card. Just to, like, have a good defender or just, like, hold in the mid game. He's actually pretty solid. There's a lot of cool stuff with him, like that new card Troll Gifts, too. I wouldn't put him in F tier. I think he's actually decent. Next we have Zed. All right, so this is a weird one because Zed is usually, like, way higher. Like, this is the lowest I've ever seen Zed, literally ever. And the reason being is that there's a lot of removal right now. A lot of running Mystic Shot and Get Excited and stuff to deal with Twisted Fate and Aphelios, as well as Twisted Fate Fizz running them themselves. And then you can also Chump Block. Basically, there's not really a good deck with Zed right now. And there's a lot of removal in the meta, and he only has 2 health. If there's not much removal in the meta, he gets huge damage. He's hard to stop. But since there is, basically always stopped. If you draw him too late, you can just stun him with Graviton. And he's a very good champion individually. It's just in the current meta, there's not really stuff that he fits in that's that good, / he's easy to stop right now. And F tier, we have Vladimir. He gets slight buffs every season. I could see him maybe being in D tier, honestly. I mean, Scargrounds isn't that bad. They got Troll Gifts. It's cool. One of the biggest problems is they can't beat Lee Sin at all. Lee Sin, they have no way to deal with Lee Sin just killing 20-0 one turn. If Lee Sin never gets like nerfed or like the deck is nerfed again or something, or it's out of the meta, this could be good. The Scarground's tough. It's hard to deal with sometimes, and he's okay. S tier's Deep. Deep's one of my favorite decks in the entire game. I freaking love Deep. It's so fun. But I can't act like Deep isn't one of the weakest decks in the game. Yeah, the early game of Deep is so obscenely weak. If you just like sneeze on them, then they get overwhelmed and you can't come back. Like, they have 1/1 Dredger. That's like one of their only blockers in the early game. 1/2 Thorian Toad, or 1/4 Thorian Toad. Deep loses to Lee Sin. It's slow, so it loses to decks. Not even that fast. It loses just generic mid-range decks. Like, it's outpaced by like Fiora Shen, a very generic deck. Outpaced by aggro because it's so slow and has no early game. It's late game. Madonna's is now strongest late game with like Lee Sin and Anivia. Oh, it depends, but stuff like that. No, not the worst deck ever because it still will beat things if you open well and they can't deal with it. But it has a lot of flaws. It also bricks a lot of expensive seed creatures, so a lot of flaws in the early game, a lot of flaws in the mid game. The late game's not the greatest, and they can brick, so. Cool deck, though, and I hope they buff it. Katarina. These two have been the worst champs for, like, a long time now, like months and months, like seasons and seasons, but going again, she loses you tempo when you play her. Like, you play her, and she's a 3/2, and you attack, and she leaves the field. That's why, it's like, you play a 3-mana card that leaves the field, that's losing you so much momentum. Like, she's cool as like a 1 or 2 of, maybe even in a 3 of them like Yasuo decks if you don't want to play like Yasuo Aphelios or you don't want to play Yasuo Swain or something. She is good with Faye and you can put on a lot of damage with her, so I think she's actually not that bad. I don't think a champion's that bad, honestly, but it's just losing the field with her is definitely a huge downside. Last is Lulu. I honestly don't think Lulu is like the worst card individually. Her effect is pretty good. It's like there's no Lulu deck. There's no support deck. Support decks are very interruptible by nature because you need multiple cards to work with each other. Their payoff isn't even that high because like you're doing these cards that need multiple cards to work with each other to get like to buff things for a round, while their cards are just individually generating like insane amounts of cards and killing things and doing all kinds of crazy stuff that like is like game winning, and then you're just like buffing stuff. So, and in general, they're just kind of weak. So there's not really a set core. But let me know what you guys think. There's my video in the comments below. Let me know what you feel. I'm going to be doing more videos this week, like Pirate Aggro and Overwhelm. Even make this video, maybe want to try making similar decks. Maybe I'll cook something up. But I'm excited to see what happens with Shreema and the new champions. And I just made a bunch of Aphelios videos. So hope you enjoy the champ tier list. Pretty straightforward. The meta doesn't change too much from last time. That's why it was a bit more simple. But a lot to talk about with Shreema. So see you guys there.